Hello, hello. Welcome everyone. Welcome. Oh my word, really got a picture up here. A bit early for that. Welcome everyone, welcome. Hello. Welcome. Just doing my usual arrangements. Oh my word, a mess over here. Welcome, hello, let's have a look who has joined us tonight. Hello, Anne. Welcome, Anne. Doris, Drew, how's it going? Gabrielle, Igo, hello, Jill. Good to see some familiar faces. Hello, Julia, Karina, Kim, hello. Marty, Sanjvi, Yelena, good to see you. Good to see everyone. Welcome to the best of Uganda. What would you call this? Teaser. I love this trip. Honestly, it's just amazing. Going to give it a few minutes. Hello, Yelena. Hello. Oh, I'm opening the wrong thing. There we go. I'm in chats. Good morning from California. Hello, Kim. Hello, Marty from the Netherlands. Igo, how are you doing? I'm very well, thanks. How are you? Hello, Doris. Hello, Yelena, and hello, Anne. I hope you're all well. It's crazy out there at the moment. Hello, Lucas. Welcome from Switzerland. I went to Switzerland once. It was a good time. It's a very good time. Cold. Oof. Zambians are not built for that kind of weather, but it was fun nonetheless. Hey, Drew. Welcome. I love having new faces, and I love having people that I've never met before, who hopefully I will meet on safari one day. It's a great pleasure, either way. So I think we can start. It's almost time. What's the time now? 1 minute. Maybe I'm being a bit eager. Should I crack a beer? No, I won't. There is a fridge here. We finally allowed back in our office under strict circumstances. Only a handful of us at a time, 3 or 4. And there's a fridge which is filled with beer. But I don't drink much. But I wouldn't mind one, but I'm not going to have one. I'm a word. I'm fighting with my own conscience. Okay, 2 minutes. And I think we have everyone. Beautiful. Welcome, everyone. Today, we are going to chat about Uganda. Okay. Pretty much all I have to say about it is it's incredible and you all need to see it. Thanks for joining the webinar. Catch you all later in the week. Cheers. Kidding. No, I've got lots to say about Uganda. Honestly, there's not enough time in a day to talk about Uganda. The first time I saw it, it really blew my mind. I know I say that a lot about places, and I'm overly excited about wild places, but this is one of those places where, you know, has anybody online been to see the great apes? Anybody? Hello, has anybody seen the great apes? Lucas, not yet. Igo, you have. Well, you know. Take your breath away. Hannah, you have. That's awesome. I know, Yelena, there's not enough times you can do it in the lifetime. It really is. Welcome, Hannah. A few more people joining us. Beautiful. Well, those of you those of you who have not yet will know that it is not even in Africa, in the world. It's probably in the top 5 most incredible things you can do in the world. No joke. It has to be. It's nothing else like it when you sit next to these apes that like outsize even the biggest human. Those gorillas make me look tiny, and I'm a big fella. So it's incredible, and it's different. It's unlike any other animal. I mean, we've all been in, I'm sure, on various safaris in the world. And we'll get you there. I know, Hannah. 1 hour's not a lot of time. Absolutely. We see things. There's rumors of that changing in the future, but there's kind of, it's one of those situations where there's so much evidence backing the 1 hour rule, and there's so much evidence backing changing it to 2 hours. It's one of those situations where like the science is good on both sides and no one knows what to do. So yeah, we'll see. But even that hour is extraordinary. And I tell you what, when you're with one of those silverbacks, time certainly slows down, and it is really incredible. Okay, well, let's chat about it, because here at Wild Eye, we do a safari called the Best of Uganda Safari. I mean, as amazing as the gorillas are, it's a long way to go just to see gorillas. So hence why we came up with the Best of Uganda Safari. It includes more of Uganda, which is quite special. It turns it into quite a long and really dynamic and interesting adventure. And when I say adventure, I mean adventure. This is not sugar-coated, although I love high octane Big 5 safari in the Jeep in one place, fly in, fly out, brilliant, love them all. This is different, completely different. So we drive from place to place, from chimpanzees in Kibale Forest to Queen Elizabeth National Park to Bwindi. We explore Uganda. We get to know Uganda so very well. And that's what makes this trip, for me, so special and so different. And I've got a whole bunch of, I've got visuals all over the place here. And I just wish that it would. So I'm going to be putting some stuff behind my head. How interesting is that? This is where we start. Oh, let me hide gorilla. Entebbe. Entebbe itself. This is where you all fly. This is where I meet you. Myself, Johan, Trevor, whichever one of the guides are doing it. We've got a few more trips going next year. But you can see Entebbe, that's it there. It's stunning in itself. It's on the edge of Lake Victoria, which is an incredible place. Entebbe is beautiful. We all fly there. We meet there. We have one night in Entebbe. And we all chat and we have cold beers and wine. And it's really beautiful. And from Entebbe, we start our journey. Now, I've done the driving route from Entebbe before, where you drive from Entebbe to Kibale. It's a long way. And it's interesting, but it's not the kind of crown jewel area, which is Uganda's western side, where the forests start creeping in and they have a lot of their wild parks in that area. So we actually decided we're going to miss that, and we fly to Kasese, which I don't have on this map. But the drive through Uganda itself is stunning. I mean, let me get a bit, where's our first place? Our first place. Oh, this is it. Let me get out of the way. I don't know which way to stand here. Let me stand in the middle. How about there? There you can see the map on my left. This is so confusing. There we go. Kibale Forest, guys. We're spending two full days of chimp trekking here. We've got an option, and we've stuck to. You've got two options actually in both gorillas and chimpanzees. Chimpanzees are, I found that they're often overlooked. You know, people, when they think great apes, they think gorillas, and for good reason. Gorillas are significantly bigger than a chimpanzee, but chimpanzees in their character, for me, are just as interesting as gorillas. And if you ask people who have done both, they'll tell you the same thing. They go, they're completely different animals. The gorillas are really immense animals, but they're very calm and majestic, and they very seldomly lose composure. I mean, you can see this video that's behind me at the moment. This male chimpanzee almost ran us over to get to another male chimpanzee. He wasn't coming at us, but he suddenly changed. This is what happens. They suddenly change their mood, and they can go from you're relaxed and you're sitting and you're watching them and it's all brilliant, to pandemonium. I mean, there can be 90, 100 chimps in a chimp family. This is what's quite interesting now. Then they're not all together. That family has quite a big home range. And then there's segments of that family that come and go to each other, and they break apart, and they're never really come together in one group. But about 90 to 100 chimps have this big home range where they have these split up parts, and then outside of that area, you'll have another group of chimpanzees, and you kind of go to one of those little family units where there's 5 or 6 of them. Sometimes you find more. I mean, we went once and there was about 20 of them up in the trees, and they'd caught a blue duiker. Small antelope, very small antelope, and they eat meat. Chimpanzees, they can actually hunt, and that's what they did. We actually were. This is the joy of chimpanzee trekking. It's extraordinary. Apart from just sitting with them when they're relaxed, which photographically is probably what you want the most, because you can get to move around, check angles, and you can shoot their faces, and it's really easy. But as an experience, it's so incredible when you follow them when they're hunting or when they're on patrol. When they're on patrol, it's like you're in a Hollywood movie. All the chimps suddenly go from, we can all mess about, the young ones can have a blast, like females can have an argument, and males can have an argument, to everyone's in line, everyone shut up, we're moving in a line, we're checking the boundary of our territory for neighboring chimp families that aren't part of that greater family. And it's eerie. You sit there and these chimps all just dead quiet, and they're all listening in the forest for sounds of chimpanzees, and they check what the guides call no chimps land, which is these areas between the territories, which is fascinating. And then they go and they check there, and if you're lucky, they'll find another group. It's only happened once with me. They actually found another chimpanzee group, and that one didn't turn into a fight, but sometimes it does turn into big fights. And so yeah, it's an incredible experience. Chimpanzees, completely different. They can go absolutely bonkers for no apparent reason, and then it can be all really relaxed and watching. You get a chance to have a really intimate experience with them. So 2 full days in Kibale Forest. The nice thing about Kibale is, I mean, all these forests, this is what is often overlooked in Uganda, is that there is actually so many ape species. I mean, here's a blue monkey above my head. 13 different ape species in the forest. Amazing blue monkeys, golden in the high mountains, golden monkeys, black and white colobus, red colobus, gray-cheeked mangabees, and you see them, they're there. I mean, they're not hard to find, a lot of them. Here's a little olive baboon, little fella. Yeah, they're all over the place. But yeah, there's literally 13 species of ape in this place, which is fascinating. And the bird life is just incredible too. So when you go to Kibale Forest, although chimpanzees do steal the spotlight, when you're driving around, it is just immense beauty. And let me show you where we are when we go to Queen Elizabeth National Park. Now, Queen Elizabeth, once we've done chimpanzee trekking, we go to Queen Elizabeth, which is a really interesting place. I've seen, it's more kind of conventional safari stuff that you and I are kind of, I tried this map thing on Google Earth. I don't really like how it's coming out. It looked better on my screen. Anyway, I'm going to let it zoom out a bit, or it's just going to crash. Hello? Sadly, yes. So chimpanzees have the same time limit as gorillas. It's 1 hour, unless you do the chimp habituation trek, like gorillas and chimpanzees have this option. It is risky, so you go towards families that aren't necessarily habituated to people to help habituate them. With gorillas, this video definitely didn't work. With gorillas, it's all day. If you find the habituation family, you can spend all day with them, literally all day. With chimpanzees, if you find a habituation family, you can spend 4 hours with them. However, we have found with the chimps are more difficult to view than gorillas. Gorillas their home ranges are very small and they're very predictable. So the guides can go to where they last slept, find where they went, find them. They don't move very far. So with chimpanzees, can be, sorry, let me get some. Hello, Charlotte. Welcome. So, good question, Charlotte. I'll actually get onto now how far they are away from each other. I'll just finish up with chimpanzees now quickly. With the chimpanzees being harder to get a good experience with them, because sometimes the chimps, pleasure, Charlotte, pleasure. Welcome. Good to see you here. Because the chimps are sometimes high up in trees, you can barely see them sometimes. So the guides are lenient. They go, listen, it's an hour of good viewing. Sometimes as you find them, the chimps hear other chimps going nuts, and you have to try and follow them through the jungle. And the jungle's thick, and you can't move very fast. So they don't go, oh, you know what, you saw them an hour ago, even though you've only had a visual for 5 minutes. It's time to go. They are lenient, and they will say, listen, I know it's been an hour, but you guys have barely seen them. They're about to come down the tree. Let's spend some good time with them. So it is an hour by rule, Sanjvi, but it can change depending on how tough the sighting is. If you're lucky, I've had it quite a few times where you just walk in, whoop, all the chimps are all sitting on the ground happy. You spend a good hour with them, you go off, but it does change. So Charlotte's question is, how far is it from one place to the other? So we fly to Kasese, and from Kasese to Kibale, it's about a 3-hour drive. I'll show you a little picture of our wagon that we travel in, which is so awesome. Here it is here. I'm hiding it. There's the guy. There's our big fella. So we travel in that from Kasese, from our first landing spot. That's what we hop into. Very good guides. JP will guide us from there. Extremely knowledgeable Omer, where he's such an inspiration. And we drive to Kibale. From Kibale to Queen Elizabeth, it's actually very short to the border. If I remember correctly, it's about an hour and a half from Kibale to the border of Queen Elizabeth. It's actually almost all interconnected. There's a little wildlife corridor between Queen Elizabeth and Kibale. In fact, in Queen Elizabeth, there's a gorge where you can find chimpanzees. And at the moment, there's a big conservational project where they're trying to interlink these places again, because obviously the chimps that are isolated in that gorge used to have a connection to the chimps in Kibale, and they would mix. Now, obviously, there's genetic issues with the chimps that are stuck in the gorge. So they're trying to get it to mix. And you drive down that wildlife corridor into Queen Elizabeth. So it's like a very long game drive. And I mean, you must see Uganda. It's just scenically, it's one of the most beautiful places you'll ever see. And I definitely uploaded a photograph, but it's not here for some reason. What's going on? I'll show you it in a little bit. So, Queen Elizabeth National Park. I'll try. The map thing didn't really work, but it's a very different place. So, some could say it's almost like we go on the Pearl of Africa. That is correct. You know, I read a book that I found with my dad about Queen Elizabeth National Park, and it's extraordinary, its history, and it's obviously it's had its tough eras during war and usual African turmoil, and it lost some of its animal populations, but it's growing slowly. I mean, it's a paradise, absolute paradise. Where we stay is actually in a place called Ishasha, where I'll show you. This video was taken. Tree climbing lions. Okay, you find them in some places in Africa. You find them in places in Tanzania and Kenya. Lions do climb trees, but I've found that this place in Ishasha, they climb them the females almost regularly. They'd rather sleep in a tree than on the ground. They do it almost every day. Why? Now, there's lots of theories. There's theories about tsetse flies, long grass, heat, all kinds of stuff. To be honest, I don't think anybody knows, because there's hot places full of long grass and tsetse flies and heat in Africa, and the lions don't climb trees. So it's quite bizarre. And even more bizarre is finding these males in a tree like this. This is very lucky, but you can find the females almost guaranteed. I should never use that word, but very different place. You could say it's more like a conventional safari, because we're looking for lions, leopards. We saw a leopard on our last trip there. Beautiful sighting of a leopard, so relaxed. And what's really cool, and I don't have a picture of it here, is the habitat that you find in. You can actually see buffalo in the background here. In the far background, you can see some buff walking around. Where are all these pictures? Yeah, I think you might be able to see it here. Let's see if they're in the background. You can't really see them, but this bulge in the background here isn't actually a tree. They're euphorbias. Yeah, absolutely, Igo. It's not easy. This is actually quite an interesting photo. These two males, if you look, now these are two different Best of Uganda safaris a year apart. This is quite funny. And I didn't realize that I had a different guide at the time. But look at the lion on the left who's walking around. See, he's wearing a collar. And we went, unfortunately, the camp that we usually stay at in Ishasha on our second trip, we couldn't stay at that time. They were having issues with rains and floods and all kinds of things. So we stayed at a different camp on a completely different place in Queen Elizabeth National Park. And here are the same two males. They'd traveled, we reckon that it was about 70 kilometers these two boys had walked. So they were just traversing, looking for other prides. Who knows? But really, this is Queen Elizabeth National Park. And it has all kinds of amazing things. It has these incredible salt pans that you go and visit are full of flamingos. These euphorbia, those of you from other parts of the world, they look like cactuses. And sometimes you can find the lions and the leopards sleeping in the cactus. Now, that's something I haven't seen. I'll give you that. It's hard to see that, but it does happen here. In fact, I've never seen so many euphorbias in my life. So the habitat's really unique, although we're looking for elephants. And I've seen big elephant tusks there. Huge tuskers. I couldn't believe it. And the guide we went on a little boat cruise is one of the things that we do there. And we saw this huge elephant. Man, I should have actually gotten a picture of him. It'll take me quite a while to find it now. But it's not important. Picture's not important. What's important is when I asked him, I said, "Hey, do you know that elephant?" And he said, no, I don't. And I thought, oh, Igo, you're very lucky. You did see a leopard in the cactus, semi-cactus. Yeah, no, it's a site that really is quite unique to Queen Elizabeth National Park. there's a bunch of stories as to why those euphorbias are there. Some of them said their seeds were transported on camel salt traders who would use camels to mine salt out of these pans that I was telling you about, and they'll take them up into East Africa and other places and go trade it. They spread these spores of the euphorbias, and they went all over this place. So leopards and lions sometimes. But the leopard we were with was like looking up and was, oh, so badly want to jump, but it never did. So very close, but an amazing, amazing, amazing place. Very unique on a number of aspects. Not just lions and elephant. It's the environment. Then and I was telling you about the elephant guy, and I told him, I said, do you know this elephant? Because I've been fortunate enough to travel quite a lot of Africa, and big tuskers are rare. I'm sure a lot of you know who've been to Africa. They really are not common. The genes of big tuskers is you can't even call it rare. It's sacred now. They reckon there's about 25 left in the wild, and this one was approaching what we call megatusker size. And anywhere I've been in Africa, when I've seen an elephant that size, and I go, who's that? And you'll go, oh no, that's those of you who've been to Zimbabwe, yeah, it's Boswell, and some of the big ones in Kruger, they've all got names because they stand out. There's no other elephants like them. So I thought, oh, he'll know this one clearly. He works here all the time. He said, no. And I said, why not? He's huge. And he said, oh no, we see quite a lot of them that size. I was like, what? And at Ishasha, there's a congregation of 6 bulls, all that size, all with kind of massive, massive tusks that, JP was telling me about. All the guides know about them. So those of you who join us in the near future, we're going to go look for those bulls. We're going to find them, and we're going to shoot them with a camera. Jeez, finish my sentence. But on this where we're driving with JP, I've shown you this video before. We're actually going to a place. This is what's awesome about Queen Elizabeth. There's no standard procedure. We look for the tree climbing lines, but we adventure a lot. We check around, and you can see it's very flat here. And in fact, behind me, I'm taking the video at the moment. We're at a place called Prince Edward Flats. We're looking for one of these. I'm sure some of you know this bird, prehistoric looking fella. African shoebill. So we didn't find this shoebill at Queen Elizabeth, at Prince Edward Flats, although you can see it. It's a very good place in Africa to see it. We found this in Entebbe. So we've actually added this. Those of you who are excited about bird life, this is one of Africa's kind of holy grails of birding. And in fact, in the world, it's one of the big, if you're in the birding community, to find this thing. And it really is a fascinating bird. Mabamba Swamp in Entebbe, we actually have added onto this Best of Uganda trip the option. We're going to go early in for a day, and we're going to go for a boat adventure in Mabamba Swamp, and we're going to go look for this feather, because it is probably the best place in Africa to find it. And we can't go all the way to Entebbe and not go and look at it and see it. It's such a fascinating bird. And the bird life in that swamp is incredible. So one of the things we're going to do, and we have added onto future trips, is the option to go looking for the African shoebill, which is great. Okay, so we've checked out. Any questions on Queen Elizabeth National Park? It's fascinating. It's beautiful. It's all about the usual game that we know: elephants, lions. It's an amazing place. Honestly, it's one of those places. It reminds me of Kruger National Park. It's just every time you go there, something weird and strange and beautiful is going to happen and different. It's just one of those places. It's amazing. So the grand finale, everyone. Bwindi Impenetrable Forest. Drum roll. Tell you what, it's probably going to be the last time I try this map thing. Making me quite dizzy. Look at that. This is the grand finale. We do 3 full days of gorilla trekking. 3 gorilla treks in total. Wait until I zoom out here on my left shoulder. You can see Bwindi Impenetrable Forest. It's a remarkable kind of comeback story in conservation, which just went, okay. Zoom, come on. Anyway, it's not a big area. You can see it. It was pretty much on the brink of being chopped up for firewood when it got gazetted into a national park. In fact, a World Heritage Site now. And it has, out of the what they call the Virunga Massif, which is the mountain ranges where you find the highland gorilla, the mountain gorilla, it has the highest number. So there's about 1,200 mountain gorillas left in the wild. 800 of them are in Uganda and Bwindi. So it's one of the best places to see. There's various differences in the habitat, but very mild between Uganda and Rwanda. So we're going to spend 3 days here, which is amazing. Those of you who've been gorilla trekking before, it is an incredible thing. I mean, you could literally spend weeks here, and you would never tire of seeing these animals. They're really incredible. What really makes it for me is the guide. So she was really brilliant. I really enjoyed her. I don't know why the volume's not working this time. Usually it does. But she was explaining how the gorillas actually use their body to roll downhill instead of walking and kind of burning energy. They just tuck their shoulder and roll. Now, it is 100% true. And those of you who have been gorilla trekking, or those of you who will come gorilla trekking one day, will see that they generally do roll down the hill. And unfortunately, we're not as good at that, although I've done it unintentionally a few times, and we kind of just bounce off trees and get really dirty. But the gorillas do it, and she was explaining how they did it, which is quite funny. And these guys are awesome, and they really know the gorillas well. They know them so well. It's scary how well they know them, their personalities, their names, and the whole time. This is what's beautiful. And I think in some places in Africa, on some types of safaris, in some areas, the interpretation aspect isn't given. They just drive around. Oh, there's your lion, and there's your elephant, and there's your leopard, and there's all this and that. These guides insist on interpreting what you're seeing, which adds incredible value to this whole experience. These Ugandan guides are so well taught. They'll tell you, like, this is what he's doing, this is what he did, this is the history of the family, and this is what gorillas do, this is what they eat, and they'll little herbs and stuff that the gorillas like, and it's fascinating, and you get to learn so much. I mean, it's only an hour, and again, sometimes it stretches an hour, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, depending on how hard the sighting was. But you learn so much and experience so much in that hour. And those of you who are photographers, trust me, there's long periods, 10 minutes, where you just sit and watch the antics. You can actually see the gorilla behind her over there, of gorillas. So you just take the time and enjoy it. Here's actually our last safari there before coronavirus, COVID-19 locked us all down. There's Kathy. You can see we're following there's the silverback right at the front, some of the girls behind him. Really magical experience. Really magical experience. Really magical. And those of you who are wondering about kind of, getting along. What is this video? Please don't be something. Oh, let me move across. That's Noor and Kathy again. So this is kind of what gorilla trekking is all about. Is the gorillas are kind of quite often on the move, and it's almost better when they're on the move, because their positions are changing. You can take different images, you can experience different things. I'm just going to stop that video because there's a dark spot there, which is going to get annoying. But they've got no care in the world for you to an extent, and this is what's really beautiful, is that there is a certain element of interest with gorillas and people. So in the beginning, when I was raving about the whole gorilla experience before I even started my webinar, the reason why I find it quite interesting with both gorillas and chimpanzees is the way they consider you. You can only really understand it when you're in person with one of the great apes, because they're so similar to us. The way they look at you is very kind of, the expressions say so much. So you can almost have a conversation with a gorilla sometimes when you look. It's not that wise to just stare one down, probably get offended. Not a good idea. But every now and again, they kind of look up at you when they're coming past, and you have this little moment, and those little moments it's just absolutely incredible. Let me see. How long do you spend in the forest each day? Charlotte, good question. So how long do you spend in the forest? Most of the time, I've once had it where we walked out of Bwindi, out of the town itself, and the gorillas were 5 minutes away. And we had a perfect sighting for an hour, and we walked back to camp, and we had a late breakfast in camp. So we spent just the most part of the morning. Most of the time, you have lunch out there, and you get back at about 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So on average, the walks are about an hour and a half in, an hour and a half back on average. There have been now. I've seen people walk into Bwindi, and I'm really grateful for them, because they take that burden off our hands when we go, because we're carrying cameras and we really want to spend quality time with the gorillas. Some people go, oh, I really want to hike. I really want to push myself. And the guys go, okay. And they kind of draw straws as to who's going to take that group. and you see them walking back at kind of 7 o'clock in the afternoon, broken, because you're walking through the heat of the jungle, you're walking up and down and up and down. And even when you get to the gorillas, they might decide, okay, thanks for coming. We're going to roll down to the bottom of this ridge. It takes them 5 minutes. It takes you an hour. So we're very smart, and we've got a very good connection with the people on the ground there, and got a really good relationship with them. And we say to them, we say, listen, you know, we don't want to have, you know, don't just give us the easiest group all the time, but we you know, we don't want to have these route marches, because you want to sit and you want to enjoy yourself. So 6:30, I go, yeah. So people arrive back late. It hasn't happened to anyone at Wilder yet, I don't think. But it might have. I haven't checked with the other guys, but I haven't heard of any of us having really bad walks. I've had quite a long one, which was about 3 hours in and 3 hours back. But it wasn't too much. Jill's actually online. Jill and I had a big walk. We went right up the biggest mountain that was just next to Bwindi. She's on the webinar at the moment, and that was a long one. I also think it was about 2 hours. So yeah, but all in all, to answer your question, Charlotte, you spend the better part of the day in the jungle. Even though it's only an hour with the gorillas, you will spend most of the day. And the part that you don't spend, you spend kicking your shoes off in the lounge, or if you like, you have quite an easy walk, and you've got a bit of time. Like Jill Vox, who's on the webinar at the moment, her and I went up to the waterfalls, which was stunning. And you go up, and there's 3 waterfalls, and you can walk through the jungle, and you have a guide, and they can talk and tell you about it. That's really beautiful. So there's loads of things you can do if you have a really easy walk and you have lots of time. You can go and visit the Batwa people. They used to inhabit the forest. It's also quite a beautiful story how they had to get removed from the forest, obviously. That's the dark side of conservation, but there's always kind of a method to do it which keeps everyone happy and keeps everyone kind of continuing with their life. Now, there's obviously still areas to improve with the Batwa, but they've been trying to integrate them into farming and you know, making a living other than hunting the forest. So lots of interesting things you can do outside of the gorilla trekking itself, but it is truly magnificent. This is I love this picture. You can just see the rest of the crew. I mean, this jungle, they don't call it an impenetrable forest for nothing. I don't want that to scare anybody. Actually, it's relatively easy walking a lot of the time. If it rains, that's when it can get quite tiresome, but it's worth every single bit of sweat that you drop in that forest. Because when you finally walk onto those gorillas, it is an experience and a moment you will never, ever, ever, ever forget. Let me see if I can get some more pictures up here. Some of them haven't come through. Let's see if this one works. Ha! There's a little one. I'm sure some of you have seen it on Instagram. Those of you interested in photography, I've raved about the experience a lot. But this is a lot of what you're kind of doing in the jungles. You're looking at their hands, their faces, their expressions, their textures. It's really a beautiful scene to kind of fill the frame with dark gorilla fur, and then these really light sections full of texture and full of patterns, their hands and their faces. The photography is just amazing. Lucas, good question. Lucas' question is, how do the seasons differ? So February, that's why we've got one. So technically, because it's tropical Africa, it rains throughout the year, and it has. The trip that we do in February is technically supposed to be the dry season of Uganda, or that part of Uganda specifically, the rainforest sections. But it's rained every time I've gone in February. So I think Jill and I went in August. I think it was August. And it didn't really rain for us. I remember it rained a little bit, but I had another client of ours that went without Wild Eye, that I was just helping with their trip. It went before that, and it rained all day, all the time. So honestly, Lucas, there isn't really a best time of year to go. There's a dry season. They call it the dry season, which is kind of February, March, April. But even in those months, it rains, and it can rain at any time of year. But that's kind of what they say. If there is going to be a peak season, that would be it then. But then again, now, yeah, And it's true. It depends which family you get allocated in terms of the gorilla trek itself and how long it takes. Sometimes, yeah, if you've got a group that the guides are sympathetic for, or a couple of people that they're sympathetic for, you'll get a nice, easy group. But if they look at you and you're all fit and healthy, they say, listen. And we've tried. I mean, I've gone there and I've said, no, I want an easy group, because a lot of the time people want big groups. Now, this is a mistake often people make. They see kind of Habanyanja groups. I think it's 23 individuals, Habanyanja family. And we almost checked we've checked the Habanyanja family. Every time I've gone there, we've checked the Habanyanja family. They're a really big family, but sometimes they can be very far away. People still want to go there. We want the big family. In that jungle, if you look at this forest, I mean, you can't see 25 of the gorillas. At any time, you might see 4 or 5 of them. So whether you're with a 25 strong family or you're with a 6 strong family, it really doesn't make a difference, because you also can't spread out all over the jungle. The guides need to keep you in one place just in case silverbacks or something goes wrong. They need to talk to silverback and convince him not to hit you into orbit, which has never happened. But I think that's because of the guide's control. So yeah, getting allocated a good family is important. And we always go down, myself and whatever guide is there, we chat to them and we say, listen, we choose the best family possible. But there is no really wrong choice there, unless they give you one that's on the other side of Bwindi and you have to walk for 9 hours or so. Yeah. All right, guys, that is pretty much the Uganda experience, the best of Uganda experience. It really is one of my favorite safaris of the whole year. I love it to bits. I can't wait. February next year is when we're going again. We're confident our Uganda safaris next year are going. Johan's going in June. And I really can't wait. And if you have any questions, swing them by me now. Otherwise, you know how to get a hold of me. How long have I got? Oh, I haven't actually, still got some more time. I pretty much covered. Melissa, best time to go? I wouldn't say there is a best time, Melissa, being tropical Africa. It's kind of all year round. That's why our safaris run. We've got one in February. We've got one in March. And we've got one. Elena, November was kind of wet. Yeah, it can be wet in that time of year. But I mean, I've been rained on in February every time. So I think you just got to brace that if we go there for 3 days, we're going to get rain. I mean, on our last trip there, we got rained on in the Kibale section, the chimpanzee section, quite a lot. Luckily, the chimpanzee section is quite flat, so it doesn't really make a difference. But so Charlotte, the reason why we only spend an hour with them is because they don't want them to get too habituated to people every day, because they're seeing people every day. We want to withhold how much time we spend with gorillas. If we spend too much time with them, by the time we walk to them next time, they'll just be hanging on you. And obviously, you know about the transmission of disease between us and gorillas. They share 98% genome with us. So if we have a common cold, it can wipe out a gorilla family. So we have to keep that distance. And even now, I've kind of heard cracking above my head. And I looked up. This was my first gorilla safari. I looked up, and a little baby was swinging down. And he was going to use my head and shoulder to get to the floor. And he was like really disappointed that I moved out the way. So that's what they're trying to prevent. They're trying to prevent the gorillas kind of getting too familiar that they want to come and interact with you, which some of the families are already, and you have to pull back. Lucas, if you were to choose one focal length to take with you to gorillas, I would take a 70-200 f2.8. The biggest thing is light. You need a wide open aperture. My first gorilla safari, I went with an f4 lens, and I did all right, but having a f2.8 lens makes the biggest difference. So f2.8, 70-200, and a 24-70 f2.8, you're good. 24-70, you're not going to use it as much, but these big moments like this picture that's behind me, I really love it. Now it's not a hitter on social media, but for me, I love an image that can take you to a place that has something more to it. Kind of you get drawn into it. And I took this with a 24-70. If I didn't have a 24-70, then I'd have been really upset, because I was waiting for a gorilla to come out of the jungle and to get a bigger picture of the gorilla and what's around him. So I'd have been really upset. 24-70, first choice. 70-200 first choice, f2.8, 24-70 or equivalent somewhere in that focal length is definitely your best choice on focal length. Sorry, Hannah, I've missed your one. I couldn't agree more, Hannah. I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more. Hannah's expressing the importance of the experience itself, and the images come second, and I couldn't agree more. It is so easy to panic and not panic, wrong word, but when I can remember my first gorilla experience, the first day, I was so excited and I wanted to take pictures, and I was too busy taking pictures to actually recognize where I was, and I regretted it for the rest of that trip. I rectified that, and the next day I put my camera down and enjoyed the moment. But that night I had almost had a sleepless night, regretting not putting my camera down. The experience with gorillas trumps everything. So, I mean, if you come with me or we come with Wild Eye, we're very good at reminding people, guys, you know, the gorillas are going through thick bush at the moment. The lights are not ready. Let's actually take a moment to kind of just enjoy the scene. And even 5 minutes goes a long way, just putting your camera down and enjoying what's in front of you, which is really special. I mean, on my last trip, I think only 2 of us were photographers. The other 3 weren't photographers at all. And that's the joy of the great apes, is you don't have to be a photographer. It's all about the experience. Hannah, you're too right. You're too right. There's 2. Sorry, there's 2. I don't know why there's 2 question boards coming up. Okay. Charlotte, I hope I've answered your question about the 1 hour rule. Brendan, hello, Brendan, welcome. Brendan, unfortunately, Virunga's closed again. To answer your question, sorry guys, I didn't see this. The second, there's 2 chat rooms. Brendan, the Virunga and DRC is unfortunately closed again, and it's probably going to be closed for quite a while after the tragic attack on those ranges. We're really hoping they can get a grip of that region, but unfortunately, that'll be closed for a while. And Igo lodges that we stay at in Kibale, we stay at Primate Lodge, which is stunning. Built literally in. This is the greatest thing. This is what we're showing. There's quite a few options of what lodges we stay at in all these places. And for us, the big thing is staying within the place that you're viewing. So like a lot of camps and stuff are just outside Queen Elizabeth National Park, and you drive into it. So we stay right in Ishasha Wilderness Camp, which is right in the middle of. Oh wait, hang on. Just turn that off. Let me just turn this virtual background off. There we go. And in Kibale, we stay at Primate Lodge, which is literally in the middle of Kibale Forest. They've had chimpanzees walking straight through the lodge. They have mangabees, red-tailed monkeys, which are the funniest, cutest looking things, all coming into the lodge. So you're staying in and around the chimpanzees' habitat. You can hear them at night. It's amazing. Same thing with Bwindi. Bwindi, we stay at Bahoma Lodge, which is inside Bwindi Forest. There's loads of options. Not loads, but there's at least a dozen options where you can stay at in Bwindi, from self-catering campsite that's outside, and there's a bunch of different lodges. But on this Best of Uganda one, we stay at Bahoma Lodge, which is inside the forest itself. So I mean, you literally walk out that lodge and there's just walls of forest all around you. So I hope that answers your question, Brendan. Yeah. So Lisa's question. So good question. Thank you, Lisa. Flies can cause a problem. I've never had it. I've had if the gorillas go down to low-lying bog areas where there's quite a lot of water, which I've never had it. I've heard that flies can be quite a big issue, but I don't think it's something we have to worry about. It's not. I've never had a problem with insects there. They're there, but they don't really get in the way of things. I hope that answers your question, Lisa. And thanks, guys. Any other questions? Please feel free to ask. It's a super exciting trip. I'd love to see you all on it one day, even with us, without us. Just make sure you go see those gorillas, and it is only getting more expensive. If you think about it, there's 1,200 gorillas in the wild. The number's increasing, which is fantastic news, but about 50% of those are habituated to people, and you can imagine how many people are in the world who want to see those 50%, which would be 600 or so. There's not a lot of gorillas to go around, hence the prices keep rising. And I'm sure those of you have seen the prices. They're not cheap, but it is a very rare and endangered animal indeed. So the sooner the better. Get out there, see some great apes. Let me know if you have questions. Let me know if you want a brochure. Our 2022 dates are out. Those of you who are a little bit worried about traveling soon, we have opened up 2022 dates for those of you who want to start locking down some travel. And what's quite nice is all these camps and lodges are holding their 2021, 2020 dates for 2022 prices. So you could win, just saying, not selling. You could win if you book this year for 2022. And I assure you, COVID will be a long time memory in 2022. I hope you guys enjoyed. Any other questions? Let me know, or get hold of me on social media or email or even a phone call. I'm always keen to chat and have a rant about the world and then talk wildlife. Pleasure, Lucas. Pleasure, Charlotte. Pleasure, Elena. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Doris. Cheers, Brendan. Pleasure. Pleasure, Igo. Take care. Cheers, Charlotte. Cheers, Marty. Cheers, Drew. Cheers, cheers. Cheers, Anne. Thanks for joining. Cheers, Sanjvi. It'll be great to have you there. You're gonna love it. It'll blow your mind. I can't speak highly enough of it. It really is an incredible experience. Cheers, guys. Such a pleasure having you here. If you don't have any more questions, I'm gonna end the meeting. I'm gonna be talking about Ethiopia next week. I also love this place just as much as I love Uganda. So I'd love to see you there. Cheers, everyone. Thank you, Lisa. Take care. Bye now.